Okay, we're getting close to the home stretch. This is part 3 of your function study guide solutions. All right, so in this example, you basically have to figure out which equation matches the graph that's represented. Well, in order to do this, we also need to look at two things, our y-intercept. So our y-intercept, which is this point right here, that's our y-intercept, is 2. So if we have our equation y equals mx plus b, what that means is the b has to equal a negative 2. All right, so that would be this one right here. This is the only one that has a b of negative 2. All right, it also means another thing that we can tell by looking at the equation is what the slope is. The slope tells us how much we rise and run. So in other words, how are we getting from one point to another? Well, I'm adding 1 and I'm adding 1. I'm going up 1 over 1 to get from here to here. So our m is 1 over 1. All right, that's our slope. So in order to get from here to here, we're basically taking our x and we're subtracting 2 every time. So if I have negative 2 minus 2, that equals negative 4. If I have 0 minus 2, okay, that's not going to work because 0 minus 2 is not 0. So A is not the answer. Let's look here. Am I subtracting x minus 2 every time? Does negative 3 minus 2, is that going to equal negative 5? Yes, it does. Does 0 minus 2, does that equal, does that work? Yes, 0 minus 2 is negative 2, and 3 minus 2 is 1. So B is the correct answer. All right, the next problem, we're doing the same thing. This time our y-intercept is 0. Y-intercept is 0. So if you have your equation y equals mx plus b, the b is going to be 0. So there's going to be nothing in place for the b. So we can already eliminate d and a because this has a y-intercept of 3, and those are not the correct answers. All right, so that leaves us with these two. So we have to figure out what is our slope. So to get from one point on the line to another point on the line, I'm going to use these two as our guide. I'm going to go up, up, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to go over 1. All right, so that's going to make a slope triangle. We're going up 3 over 1. So our slope is 3 over 1, or 3, which is the letter B. So B is our answer. C is not, because C is negative. We're not going down. We're not going down 3 and over 1. All right. So now we need to look at our rule. Our rule is whatever x is, we're multiplying that times 3. So to get from one side to the other, we have to multiply times 3. So if I look here, is negative 3 times 3 1? And the answer is no. So it's definitely not A. All right, if I get here and I'm multiplying by 3, yes, 2 times 3 is 6. But we have to make sure it's true for all the values in the table. Be careful, because on your SOLs, you might see an answer like this as well. And you think just because you do the first one that it's right. You have to check all of them. Is 1 times 5, is 1 times 3 equal to 3? No, it's not. So B is out. Now we're moving on to C. All right, if I multiply by 3. All right, so is negative 2 times 3 negative 6? Yes. Is 1 times 3 3? Yes. Is 2 times 3 6? Yes. So C is the correct answer. Yay, good job. All right, 2 more problems in this section. All right, this one says select 3 points that lie on a graph of the line y equals 1/4 x. Now, there are several ways that you can do this. You could go ahead and convert this to a decimal if you wanted and do it that way. Or you could leave it as a fraction. If you're good with multiplying fractions, then you can do it that way. So what I did is I went ahead and labeled which coordinate was x and y, because I'm a visual person and that helps me to be able to calculate this. And I'm seeing which one is true. So if I have 0 for my y, and I'm looking at the equation, if I plug a 0 in for my y and I multiply 0.25 and I have a 0, are these going to equal each other? All right. So the answer to this one, yes, this one will work, because anytime I multiply something by 0, it's going to equal 0. So the first one would definitely lie on the graph. Another way you can do this if you have graph paper is you can just graph this line, and then you can look at, if you graph it, you can plot these points and see if they're on the line. All right, and then if I have 8 and 2, all right, so again, I'm going to use my equation, y equals 0.25 times x, right, times x. So if I have 8 and 2, then I'm going to say, does 0.25 times 8, is that going to equal 2? All right. So the answer to that is, if you plug that on your calculator, then yes, it does. They do equal each other. So this one is also one that's going to work. All right. If we tried this one, if I have a 3 and a 12, is that going to work? Well, let's see. If my y is 12, so does 12 equal 0.25? If I multiply 3 times that, is it going to give me 12? And the answer to that is no, it does not. They do not equal each other, so I'm not going to use that. And plug that in your calculator and see. It doesn't work. The next one, y. So if I use the same equation, I'm going to substitute the 8 in for y. Does 8 equal 0.25? If I multiply that times 2, is it going to work? No, it doesn't. So it's not this one. This one, let's check that one out. So this time my y is 5. All right, I'm going to use the equation 0.25. Does that 25 hundredths, if I multiply that times 9, is that going to equal 5? No, that doesn't work either. So we're going to try the last one. All right, so if I take my y, which is 1, all right, does 1 equal 0.25 times 4? And the answer to that is yes, it does. So we're going to make sure that you have those 3 circled, but make sure that you understand how we came up with these questions. If you need help and you don't understand, then you can still raise your hand and ask for help, because that's what I'm here for. All right, the last question in this series, it's the same type of question. Select 3 points that lie on the graph of a line. Okay, so we know that there is only 3 points. All right, usually they won't tell you how many points there are. They'll just say select all the points. So in order to get from our x to y, we have to add 3 to it. All right, so I'm going to label, because that helps me remember every time how we're getting x to y, x to y. So what this means is that we're taking x, we're taking this number to get from here to here, and we're adding 3, and that should give us the number here. So if you look at this one, 3 plus 3 is not 0. All right, so that's not it. If you look here, 1 plus 3 is not 3. So that doesn't work because 1 plus 3 is 4. That's not it. Okay, if I look at this one and I take 2 and I add 3 to 2, 3 plus 2 is 5. So yes, this one will work. I know that I have 2 more because it says select 3. So I'm going to figure out where those 2 are. If I take -1 and I add 3 to that, is that 2? Yes, it is. You can also use this on your calculator if you want, but -1, 0, 1, and 2. So that would definitely work. If I take 3 and I add 3, 3 plus 3 is not 12. If I take -3 and I add 3 to it, yes, it is 0. So those are the 3 that you would use for that. And that is the end of this section.